All right, welcome in everybody. I'm so glad you're here. If this is your first time joining us, this is HR Lunch Bunch, and I am your guest facilitator. Actually, I'm kind of almost always here. I'm Deborah Jeffries. I serve as the Vice President of HR Answers, and it's our privilege to bring to you. We meet the first Wednesday of every month for HR Lunch Bunch, where we're hoping to bring topics that are relevant to HR professionals, and we're always open for topics. So please make sure if you've got ideas and suggestions, the chat box is open for a form of communication. I do like to be able to have um, uh, you have your cameras on and be able to see you. This is, again, if you're new to us, this started 16 years ago, and we used to meet in person for lunch, which is why it's called HR Lunch Bunch, as a way of being able to network and really spend some time with each other. While there are many other HR forums for us to be able to participate in, oftentimes we didn't really get a chance to really literally sit and chat about a particular topic more in depth amongst ourselves. There was always someone who was talking to us. And so this is really intended to be an opportunity for us to talk with each other. So today our topic is on resiliency and kind of a reflection or opportunity for us to reflect for ourselves on how we're doing. But I also think you can take this topic back to the organization and how are we as an organization in terms of being resilient, but then also from an employee standpoint, regardless of the level of responsibility. So, if again, this is your first time with us, I'm glad that you're here. I welcome you in. If you need to have my contact information, there I be. I've been with the organization for over 30 years. And again, we've been doing this program and having guests join us where and when appropriate because we're not the experts on everything, but we do like to meet the first Wednesday of every month at 12 noon for an hour. So there's only a few of us here that are live and in person, but we do know that people we'll post this video on the HR Answers website so you can watch, replay it, share it with people back at the office. If you missed us live and in person and you registered to kind of attend, you can have a chance to kind of play catch up. And so all of our programs for the last couple of years are housed there. So if you want to take a listen, feel free to do so. We're glad to have that. But truly, I do intend this to be an opportunity for discussion. There is a PowerPoint. I usually have one, whether it's me or someone else. Those are made available and sent out after the program is over. That way, you have a chance to have a little bit of guidance on what the conversation was. You don't have to sit there and take a lot of notes. If I'm ever doing a program, sometimes I like stats and numbers can help you tell a story or share with your higher ups or with your employees if you're trying to bring this program a little bit more to the surface and conversation in house. So let's have some fun and let's talk a little bit about resiliency and what does that mean? And I think we could have some definitions to it, you know, and I think some key questions we could ask ourselves today is, do you consider yourself a resilient person? Like when you have a setback, and maybe just even by show of hands, or again, you can use the chat box. Anybody have a setback already this year? We're in December, so there's been a lot of time. Have you had some kind of personal or professional setback, and how have you bounced back from that? What are your methods or tools for bouncing back from a setback? And if you think you are a resilient individual, why do you think you are one? What makes you say that? What is it that you're doing, thinking, saying, behaving, right? So, I mean, how do you know that you are? What would others say in terms of, are you a resilient individual? And we could say the same questions and just rephrase them a little bit to as an organization, right? We could have applied this conversation to coming out of the pandemic. So I think that those are kind of our key questions today. And what I did is I put some information together to kind of help us answer these questions. So you're going to have a chance to like rate yourself and share with each other whatever level of comfort you're willing to share. So I put some additional thoughts together and kind of maybe a polling question, and not polling as in I'm you have to answer through a poll, but just maybe using the chat box or unmuting yourself. How would you define resiliency? And I put a couple bullet points, but how would you define it? Those of you who are with me, what if you were trading places with me? How would you define it? What words would you use? And welcome in Robin and Tasha. Glad that you were able to join us as well. We're just getting started. Ah, I see in the chat box. If you get knocked down, get back up again. Absolutely. Absolutely. And and we were talking earlier about like and we will talk about because I'll ask some questions like how do you do that? What is it that you say to yourself, or what are the things that you do to make that a reality? Because I think sometimes getting back up again might be easier for some things than maybe for others. Or maybe when I was younger, it was easier to bounce back for some things, or some issues, or some concerns, or maybe some emotions. So being able to, how do you define it? If we weren't talking about resiliency and we were kind of going the complete other side of the spectrum, burnout. I don't think we all define burnout the same way. It's been quite the topic of conversation, but are we actually defining it? Because I think it's been used. So this is a personal bias, so I'll just make that clear. I think it's being perhaps overused as a term, and so what does it really mean to people? Because I think it's getting used like I'm stressed out, I'm burned out, and I'm not sure that they're the same. So, okay, so I like this. Bouncing back means returning to normal. What's our definition of normal? Normal for us, for quote unquote me. What's your normal, right? And how do you know you're there? What are your signals, or what's that feeling inside, right? That gives you that. And and that ability, you're right, Megan, the ability to withstand the difficulties, to handle them when they come at you, that you have the energy to be able to do it, right? Or the you feel like you're equipped maybe with the right tools, whatever they might be. Um, and and being able to make sure that we can see things clearly enough to work them, so that we're not, to Robin's point, that we're not, it's okay to have some stress in our lives. Stress actually can provide good energy for us to move forward, right? If we had no stress, we're so calm and relaxed, would we move? Couch potatoes? Anyone? Have you guys seen that new commercial about couch potatoes? It's for watching uh, one of the TV streaming um, offers, and they're all couch potatoes. They're all potatoes with heads. Anyway, um, but not allowing yourself to get so far. I mean, burned out is giving and giving and giving and giving and giving, and you have nothing left to give, right? You're not doing anything to fill up your cup, your bucket. And so you're not doing some self care. When you're resilient, you obviously have done some things for self care because you have the energy to be able to, right? So what's when we talk about kind of your balance, your normal, are you doing enough of the right things so that you can take on when things come at you or from the side and you didn't kind of see it coming? Can you bounce back? Anybody remember those clowns that had that weighted bottom? I mean, they were nice size and you could punch them and they'd kind of tip over and they'd come back. That's resiliency, right? So again, bouncing back from the stresses in our life because that's a constant, right? It's not about avoiding them. It's being able to thrive within whatever's going on and to adapt or um, the flexibility to see what's going on. And again, to have the right kind of tools and not that we can foresee something coming. We also maybe have maybe some things we've experienced in the past and something is similar to that or that it's relatable in some fashion. There's also, having when things are going well, gratitude for that or being able to what lessons am I learning from something? And there's when we're in victim mode, we kind of do the why me? Why is this happening to me? As opposed to why not me? Why am I not? I'm not special. Why not me? Well, also, what can I learn? What can I learn from this? So there can be this gratitude for going through something so that I can learn something and a certain amount of acceptance. But there's also forgiveness. Sometimes we got to let go of things. I'm actually coaching an individual right now who's really going through a tough time and he's not he's not letting go of some stuff he's holding on so hard. I'm a little worried about him. And I'm not a trained therapist. And so strongly encouraging him to talk to someone so he can work through some of those feelings. So it's okay to have them. It's okay to have experienced them. It's okay to let go and it's okay to forgive yourself and you can't control how somebody else feels, right? And so there's a lot of stuff and hey, by show of hands or emojis, how many of you like talking about your feelings and your feelings at work? How about the managers and supervisors you work with or the employees that come to you? Do they all like talking about their feelings, their true feelings, right? So when you talk about, that ability to adapt and bounce back, well, what about resilient employees? So I have a list on the screen here in terms of what might a resilient individual look like. Now you tell me, what else would you add to this list, right? Because I think we would like to have resilient employees inside our business. There's all kinds of things that change inside our business. So what what would be good for you inside your operation? Because you all come from a variety of different kind of industries.
Deborah, I think one of the things is if an employee is willing to bring their true self, uh, you know, good and bad, warts and all, laughter and crying, um, because then you as a manager, if you're a good manager, now I've had managers that you just don't even, that they just will not even, that sort of thing. But I think knowing what's going on makes everyone very resilient. Um, I mean, I've always felt myself as resilient. Some people would call me headstrong, but you encounter whatever challenges you have through life. And I think I'm even more resilient now, but much calmer than I was, say, 20 years ago. because I've learned that the challenges that come up, I'll survive. And if I have a challenge with a certain idea, I have enough confidence in myself that I'll get another job or I'll overcome whatever relationship challenge that was. And that comes with experience and help me age.
Right? There's the one thing about experience is you can't you can't force it. It doesn't happen overnight. It comes with time. And there are times when we'd like to share with people, and and we might be able to help prevent some things from occurring by sharing our experiences. And honestly, sometimes people have to learn the hard way, or they just have to experience it for themselves to know this too shall pass. It might not ever really go away. We don't want you to forget. We do want you to be able to work through it, right? It- What do they say? Time heals all wounds. I don't know if it heals all wounds all the way, but we do have an opportunity to keep moving on.
Time adds perspective.
Right.
It's like when I've lost both my mother and father in the past about year and a half. And you'll never forget them. But as time goes on, you're like, oh, it is part of life, and I have great memories. And I think that goes on with a lot of things. Even when people, I mean, thank God I've never been let go from a job, but even people I know who've been let go from a job that they thought was just ideal for them, there was just not a correct fit. You're not a bad human being usually. Um, just not a correct fit. And with time, you'll find the right thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I always use the word alignment. How are we doing in terms of being in alignment with others or with the mission and the vision of the organization? And you can work with somebody, an organization for a long time, and we're not in alignment because something else has changed or we have changed, and that's okay. So, oh, we've got the 3 A's. Robin's weighing in with the 3 A's: attitude, adaptability, and accountability, and is what we're looking for with our employees. And you know what, Robin, one of the things I like about that is that then I'm thinking, if this is something we would be looking for, wanting, needing in our workplaces, then are we asking interview questions, whether it's us working with the hiring manager, the panel, whomever, are we asking questions that will help us learn or to be able to determine if these are characteristics of the individual? Because there's that knowledge, skills, and abilities, but we're also looking for characteristics, and those are sometimes less tangible um, with folks. Other things that we would add in terms of resistant resilient individuals are what, are who? Maybe even being able to ask another question that with this is, what do then resilient employees mean to our business? If we had a whole employee population of resilient employees, what does that afford us? What does that do to the bottom line?
I think that this is Teresa, a resilient employees as far as the bottom line in the company is they're the flexible ones. They're the ones that are positive when it comes to roadblocks or challenges. And I think that the flexibility and positivity part is that it helps everybody as a group. So if you have that type of person, and I consider them resilient, um, that's one of their common themes with their baseline personality or what they give back to the company. The only thing is that humans seem to have a problem in companies, especially too, is that when you have somebody that's like that, that they can be overused and they lean heavily onto that resilient person consistently and doesn't give them a break and doesn't teach that those traits, that positivity to others or struggle with that. So um that's what I think as far as they give back to the bottom line, but there's also that the bad side of it where or challenge where they get abused or overused.
Yep. What isn't there a phrase something like if you need something done, give it to a busy person? So,
Yeah,
and we go to our busy people because they get things done. They get
yeah,
things taken care of. Yeah.
yeah,
Yep. So, and Megan weighs in and says problem solving skills, grace and kindness shown to each other, right? And resilient people, I mean, we're talking about lower turnover rates, better communication, lower absenteeism, happier employees. And if we've got happier employees, they're more productive. Whoopsie. We just know that to be true. So, we don't want we don't want the opposite of those things, right? Because the opposite is that helplessness, that victimhood kinds of things. And when people start to find themselves in that mode, that becomes more pervasive, right? In terms of how other people are hearing and seeing it. There's more of a kind of a permanence in the air about that in terms of how they see things as that negative all the time. And it's very personalized in terms of then it's again always happening to me and everything is viewed through that lens. And so no, we don't need all of that. We really want that optimism, right, versus the pessimism. And so being able to, where are we seeing it? Who's demonstrating that kind of resiliency? Who's coming out with the kind of vocabulary that we're looking for in some fashion or another, right? Because that perception is everything. That reframing of vocabulary or how they view a situation, that we actually can make it through something, that it's not a problem, it's just a different way of, it's an opportunity, right? It's not a threat, it's an opportunity to work through something. So being able to have that empathy and compassion and understanding that something is happening or someone's going through something, and again focusing on those goals. So just being able to be more thoughtful about it or considering of that. And there's some information out there and stuff that I have used when I've done programming, even around this topic and others. Then when we talk about kind of the pillars of resiliency, we talk about, are you even self aware? Like, what are the things that spark you that could be a trigger that are not good? What are the things in terms of, can you be present? Can you be mindful here, today, now, and not, so future focused on the quote negative or something that happened and that you're already running its course and it hasn't happened yet. So I just I'll talk about full transparency. Um, I'm a woman of a certain age. It's, you go in annually for your mammogram, and she said, "Here's the deal. If there's any abnormal elements, please don't freak out. We have these machines, we do these things, and you have quite a bit of breast tissue, and you've lost a considerable amount of weight, which means this is going to be a major change from last year. Blah 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 blah." And I said, I don't have a tendency to freak out. I said, no worries. I don't freak out until there's something to freak out about. So she goes, well, that's good to hear. And so it's like, be mindful. Let's focus on now. Let's wait until there's something to be worried about, right? So being able to think about that, because that also then is taking care of yourself. When you get good sleep and good food and good exercise, then you're taking care of your body so that when something does happen, you can respond to it, right? Positive relationships, not the takers. How many of you, show of hands, has had a friend who's the take, take, take? They never give back to the relationship. Friends who just like suck the lifeblood out of you. Well, that's not healthy. That's not good, right? And when we talk about coming to work every day, being part of something bigger than myself, and doing good stuff and having people compliment you on your contributions and your accomplishments. Well, people want to be part of that. What are they doing in their personal life in terms of giving back to the community or something that's a passion of theirs, and having hobbies or something. So when we think about being a well-rounded individual, well, these pillars make up that ability to then bounce back from those setbacks. So if we take each one of these pillars, now's an opportunity for you to rate yourself. Okay. And this again would be something for you to have a conversation back at the office or create a lunch and learn on your own, right? Having a clear perception of you. What are the strengths? Where's the areas for improvements? What's your negative self talk saying to you, right? What are your beliefs and motivations? Do you know what kind of emotions, what are your feelings at any given time, and why are you having them? Where are they coming from? Because sometimes something will happen and we react to something, and it's like, wow, that came out of left field. Where is that coming from? And it's like, mm, it's self-awareness. And if you've ever had any education around emotional intelligence, right? That's step one. Are we self-aware? And a lot of times we say we are. I don't know. Are we? Are we as self-aware as we think we are? What would others say? How do they perceive us? And do we know we are as annoying as we think we are? Deborah knows she talks too much. And sometimes I know I talk too much and I say stop, and I'm still talking. My head says stop, but the mouth keeps moving. I won't ask you if that happens to you. I just know it's true for me, right? So, on a scale of 1 to 5, you can do it 1 to 10. How would you rate yourself on how self aware you are, right? So, understanding your emotions, slowing down and looking for clarity, and dealing with your emotions. But that also means physically dealing with them. People are weighing in with their rating systems, right? So, and sometimes, hey, it's okay to be out of balance occasionally. You know it. It's We're approaching the holidays. Maybe we're going to give a whole lot more. But do we have a plan for getting back in sync? We lost our parents, and we know that there's going to be a concerted amount of time and energy given because some things are going to be needing to be taken care of. Okay. Are we going to get back in sync? Do we have a thought about that? Or are we just going to let that go? Because sometimes we can get out of sync and we just keep going that way instead of getting back into those good habits, right? But there's no doubt that we can have, I'm reading the chat box. Who hasn't put their foot in their mouth from time to time? I usually know it and then I'm like, how about a little salt with that foot? Right? Because then I acknowledge, oh, my bad. right? The key, I, and I have no idea what that particular reference is about. I just know that when I've done it, when I've screwed up, an apology is in order. And that is the mark, I think, of the difference between someone who knows it, acknowledges it, and then apologizes for it. And when we think about moving from one category to the next pillar, observing your thoughts and feelings from a distance. When we think about mindfulness, can you put some distance between it? Because sometimes when we are like trying to be self-aware, there's also it comes with judgment. And the answer is not good, not bad, just being in the moment. Can you put things aside? Can you check out from the I gotta have an emotion around this? And a lot of times people are like, well, I'm not supposed to feel that way. You're entitled to your feelings. Where's it coming from? Why are you saying you can't feel that way? Who told you that? So we sit in kind of judgment of ourselves and maybe others. Why do why do people do that? All right, I'll move on because we could, right? Self-care. What are you doing for yourself to take care of you? What are you doing each and every day, 10 minutes a day, that you love to do, that gives you joy, that makes you happy, right? Because when you have energy and vitality and makes you smile, that gives you energy for other things. If you're always in service to others, you're not taking care of you, right? But this could be anything. This this isn't this isn't about a manicure, pedicure, or a massage. This is your emotional, spiritual self-care needs too, right? It's all of it as a package. And the relationships in your life. Are you taking care of them? Are you feeding them, nurturing them, right? The connections. Are they where you want them to be in some fashion or another? What does that look like? I had a conversation with one of my friends about a year or so ago, and she she had a gathering of her friends together, and what she really was hoping, I learned not too long ago that she had a couple of goals, but I didn't know that at the time. But one of them was that she wanted um, a group of people to get together and that she would host like the first one, and then she was hoping that other people would host a group of people at their house and make connections. What I learned recently is that she purposely invited certain people because she thought they could help each other with stuff they were going through. I didn't know that. She didn't say that to any of us. So like there was a reason why certain people were there. I told her that I liked what she did and I appreciated that she included me. There were some people I probably wouldn't have invited to my house because they weren't my friends. I don't know that that sat well with her. I also shared with her that I wasn't looking to make lots of new friends. I was looking to enhance and enrich the current friends that I have because I want them to be long-term, lasting friendships, meaningful friendships for the rest of my life. And so I wasn't trying to make, dozens of new friends. I can barely maintain good relationships with the friends that I have. So trying to make a whole bunch of new ones. And so where are we on that spectrum? Because again, if you're just always giving and giving and giving, who's giving back? Are you making time for your relationships, whoever is important to you, whether that's family or friends or extended, whomever? And how would you rate yourself and how you're doing with that? And what's your purpose? Are you volunteering? Do you have something beyond work? Is there something as a family that you've adopted? Do you have a personal mission statement of some sort or another? Do you have some like traditions that give you meaning in that regards? So when we think about being part of, and it doesn't have to be like a member of something, it can just be a member of your own inner circle. But what's your purpose? Like, why are you here? How would you rate yourself in being able to, one, determine it, but the actions or activities? Are you doing stuff that helps you there? That continuing on? So those are your five pillars. How did how did you do? Where are you? Are you out there?
So Deborah, here at NOAA, in regards to taking care of yourself, if you will, we offer every employee 2 hours of time off for volunteering a month. Um,
Oh,
and
nice.
I go make food at a men's shelter and have done that for years, and I get great joy out of it because I see what people don't have compared to what I have. But the sad thing is, most of our employees don't use it. And I don't know if it's that people aren't taking care of themselves and finding something that fulfills them. Um, I just don't understand why they don't use it. Some people save it up and go volunteer at their, kid or nephew's field trip. And I'm not sure I think of that as what we intended to do, but okay, if that's what fills them up,
Hmm.
at least those folks are using it, but that's what we try and do.
Hmm. That's a wonderful benefit. Yeah, I like that. And maybe people haven't found that element of passion behind something, right? Something that they can, I don't know, volunteer, get behind. Um, not everybody can donate dollars, so being able to give of time. Um, and this is the time of year where a lot of people are wanting to give, um, and 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 the answer is that's fabulous. And yet, this isn't the only time they need time in terms of the not-for-profit organizations. So, what else? What if I gave you? What if we looked at the C's? There's a gentleman. His name is Ken Ginsberg. He's a doctor, and he thinks that these are essential and interrelated. What do you think about these words? And those of you who might be like watching on demand and maybe only listening on demand, because I understand that sometimes people really don't watch this, they listen to it. Competence, confidence, connection, character, contribution, challenge, commitment, coping, and control. Do those words resonate with anybody? Might also depend on how you would define these words, right? I think some of these could even be like potentially like leadership type words. How to handle situations is competence, developed in a set of skills and trusting our own judgments. And um, I think confidence can be rooted in competence. You feel more confident when you've got good competence, right? Or you've been through it before in some fashion or another. Um, Connection, networking, um, sense of security or belonging. Do you have a sense of belonging? You know, what's your character in terms of choices or contributions, challenge, you don't get paralyzed by something, right? And commitment, goals, something's compelling, a reason to get up in the morning, right? Let alone coping, effectively coping with things and control and understanding of, internal control or outside situation or circumstances, things that are there's a difference between things that are within our control versus things that are outside our control, knowing the difference and how to work with those, right? Because I think that can be an element of resilience. I'm not sure not everybody can necessarily see those as different, and others can see them clearly. Maybe there's even other C's that you would add to the list. What do you think, Megan?
It's kind of, I don't know, just something I thought of was like resilience. I just look at it as like a muscle that you have to like work and at like flex and work out and like practice. And I've noticed I'm fairly young, I'm 25. And so I have noticed that it's been like a big learning curve, like practicing resilience in like like professional atmosphere, working in an office and stuff. But I'm also like, one of the C's that stood out also for off the list was character. Like, I just know that all of the things that I'm learning and picking up are like, I just picture a rock in like a tumbler or something, like how I'm going to come out on the other side and it's going to be like better than potentially like where I started. I don't know. Just some of the thoughts I had.
Yeah. No, I actually like that visual. I like that a lot, right? It goes in looking like one thing and it comes out looking like a polished agate, right? Yeah, there you go. Well, and see, and I think, when Cindy and I were talking about experience, there's just some things that it takes time, right? You haven't had some experiences and others have, and learning from them or listening, and then you've had some experiences that others haven't. It isn't an age thing, it's also about opportunity and placement, right? And that makes a difference too, and not to discount any of that from anybody, and truly really being able to listen and learn from each other, because I think you can, when are we not feeling resilient? When is that when is that happening for each person in terms of what's taking place? And so when is it difficult for us to be that? And these are some things on the slide, but maybe there are other things that are happening. And that's again, then back to pillar number one, self aware. What kicks in when something happens or when someone says something? When is it difficult for you to be resilient? Is there anything that comes to mind for any of you that there's something for sure that's kind of that's a knock at the knees?
There's two on that list for me. The one you wrote, when I don't feel valued or appreciated for the work I do. I set up a Teams bulletin board here called Kudos, for the specific person or for person fact. And I don't know the stats, Deborah, you probably know them, but for every time you tell somebody they've done something wrong or whatever, you need to like 10 times tell them how wonderful they are. And people here at this organization especially are not very good at saying, hey, good job, kudos, you persevered or whatever. So I did this chat thing on Teams so that people post it. I'm the one who posts things most of the time, and I try and get people to do it. But the other one is when I feel shut out, and that happens here at this organization also. and I don't know the cause of it or the remedy. But I'm part of, quote, the executive team, but our executive director doesn't include me in draft documents a lot of times, and then he'll sign them. And then I'll find simple things like we moved in January, our address is wrong. Our legal name is different because we go by Noah, but we have an actual very long legal name, and if you're, that's when I wonder, when I feel shut out, I wonder like, well, maybe I'm just burnt out. Maybe I just need to like leave because it shouldn't bother me, but it does. And I don't feel very resilient when those things happen.
Right? Yeah. Well, you're not alone. I think, others are weighing in about when you're not heard, when you're not understood, when we didn't get a chance to weigh in. When when something goes out and there's an oops, and if someone would have just shared it with somebody else to make sure. And when we think about character or on behalf of the organization, right? Because that impacts all of us, right? We want us to look good, right? We're trying to make sure that we're putting ourselves in the best light. All those kinds of things I think are values that people have. And then it's like other people don't share or have the same values. And where did that go kind of wrong or skittywampus in some fashion or another? Um, Let alone it's one of those, maybe it's not a huge deal, but if a lot of other things are going on in our world and it's one more thing, we too can blow it out of proportion and we have our own narrative about what's going on or what someone's thinking or feeling, and we didn't ask or we didn't check in, or someone actually knew we were going through some stuff and didn't want to bother us with something that was maybe not that big of a deal in their mind. But then that's when they didn't get a second set of eyes on something and we had the oops, right? I mean, there's so good intentions, and but the result was. So one of the reasons why knowing yourself and where is your difficulty is because it kind of looks like this. When we have this resilient zone, and so when we get stuck in this, some people can get stuck in the things that are stressful. So back to your example of mom and dad passing away, and sometimes we had a staff member who had that happen, and both parents passed within a short order. In fact, two staff members within like less than a year of each other. Well, that's a lot of stuff happening, a lot of emotional roller coaster, let alone, you know, there could be panic, anxiety, there could be any kind of different kinds of pains and outbursts and just emotions messing with us. Well, if we don't deal with stuff or don't have good coping strategies, or we don't know what the relationships are with all those people, we could be stuck in some really high anxiety, the high, what we call the high zone of stuff, and we're not coping well, so we're not in that good resilient zone. Or we could want to remove ourselves from people, shut ourselves away. We're not, well, don't want to talk about anything, right? Going to try and be isolated. We're so sad or so overcome with emotions, we're withdrawing. And then we're in that lower zone. So you can be in any one of those, but what we're really looking for is to be able to bounce back and be in the middle. And sometimes it takes people sometimes longer than others. What's going on? Well, that's why you got to be able to kind of build some of those skills. So when we think about when it's difficult for us, then whoops, duplication there. Who or what helps you get through a situation or a hard time? Is there a someone, a something, right? Because have you put that in place? Who's your I always think about if I ever got in a situation I went to jail, who's my phone call? And I'm not joking. It's like, yes, there's the husband, but let's just say for he's not an option. Who's the one friend I have that if I found myself in jail, I could call and would come bail me out, that would actually pick up the phone, right? Uh, And maybe that's like, Deborah, that's really sad that you even think about those things, but it's like, hey, something could happen. This mouth of mine might get me in trouble one day. So who's there for you? Do you have someone? And you guys don't have to necessarily tell me. Maybe just a hand or emoji. Do you have a somebody? Have you identified who they are? Who's that? Who's that true blue? Because remember that gentleman that I was telling you who's really struggling? He doesn't know who he can trust. That's how hardcore his emotions are right now based on what he's been through. I don't even know who I can trust anymore, Deborah. He has a significant other. He has children, grown adult children. And I know that he doesn't want to burden them. I would think that the significant other might be somebody he could talk to, but he's worried about that. So when we think about resources and the people, there's like, do you have a place, a person, a memory, a something that you can latch on to, that you can hold, that you can touch, that you're mentally you can go to, or even a picture of your happy place that puts you in a good place, that makes you feel stronger and more resilient, right? It can even be, it can be your make believe friend. It doesn't have to be a real something. It can be quote unquote an imagined something, some place that you've created. So it's one of those elements that when things are not going well, internal, external, what is it that you can do for yourself that gives you again joy, peace, strength, calmness, right? It can be a spiritual guide, spiritual animal. I don't care, whatever works for you, because it's not about anybody else. It's about you, your own imagination, your own resource that helps get you to where you want to go. So that would be like a skill number one if we were building skills. Okay, we've got a somebody maybe, but also then what's your resource, your go to? And there's also something, do you know this? There's something called the confidence pose. Okay, I see a head nodding, right? Now, I don't, this isn't something I usually, I'm just going to be honest with you. I really don't lack this very much, but I went to a program and this was something that she shared with me. And I remember one time going into the ladies' restroom before I did a presentation because I had to use the restroom. Make sure you turn off that mic first. Um, but one of the things is I actually thought about this in the restroom while I was there, and I was like, well, as long as I'm here and finishing up business and go before I do my presentation, like, I'm gonna stand there with my hands on my hips. You got this, girl. You go and do this. So, and I know Cindy is familiar with this, but Tasha and Nancy, and I know we had a couple people who had to step out already. I don't know if you're familiar with the NHRMA, Northwest Human Resource Management Association or group. If you are, great. If you aren't, it's a group of HR professionals. That is, I'm telling you like it is, people. For me, that is the one group that I do tend to get a little nervous in speaking in front of because these are all HR people. They're more than peers in my world, and I think they know stuff. And I am humble to be with them and in front of them because I am always like, what can I share with them in some fashion or another? And so because of that, then there's this element of confidence pose. Like, you can do it, Deborah. You've got stuff for them, Deborah. But that's your positive self-talk talking, right? Not allowing that other voice to get in your way. So whether you put your hands on your hips and you look in the mirror, or you just talk to yourself, or put your hands in the air and give yourself that confidence boost. So whenever we're doing something that is a little uncomfortable or new or different, yes, you can. Yes, you can. So um, I I think you can have some homework. So what are you doing? How are you doing it to widen that resilience zone in terms of being able to bounce back? And is there anything you need to do differently to embark on, right? And encouragement for yourself and self-care. And and we there's lots of skills we could have popped up. Our time is limited. However, I did put in the material, which again, you'll get a copy of the PowerPoint in an email as a follow-up to today's program. There's some resources that are apps that are out there that might be good for you, but also if you do like an employee newsletter or you have resources on an internal website, as it were, landing page within your organization of resources for employees, then you can share some of these with them. You also, there are a number of books that might be interesting to people, and many of these can be audio books that people might want to listen to as they commute to work or working out or going for walks with the dog or something like that. That opportunities, if that's something that they want to work on or is of interest to themselves. So I wanted to give you some resources that you might consider too, because this is all about like something you want to start doing. Is there anything you need to stop doing that's getting in your way? But also, is there someone that you can share this information with? Because honestly, when you think about the learning curve, when you keep things more current up here, by sharing it with someone else, it stays more sticky in your mind. So hopefully there's something here, and obviously there's more we can talk about. And if you want some of those other skills, I can share those with you kind of offline or after we close the formal recording. But if you have questions, now's a good time to kind of ask each other. Um, but I will tell you that we do have a couple of topics planned for the beginning of the year into 2025, and I have a couple of guests that will be joining us. So first, thank you so much for joining me for this one. Hope you have a good holiday season. Second, we've got learning and development top priorities for starting the year out. And then I'm going to have a guest join me for the pillars of a wellness culture. I'm going to have Danielle join me from AWC in February, and she'll be our guest for that conversation. And then let's talk a little bit, even though Oregon doesn't have any requirements for pay transparency at this time, Washington does. And what goes on in Washington might actually come a little further south. And um, let's see, Pennsylvania and one other state have it on the dockets for voting on. And we already have about 10 or so states that are doing it. While it may not be on the docket at the federal level, state by state, and soon enough, soon enough, it might actually become a um, more of a federal thing. But I thought we would talk a little bit about, are you just taking the initiative yourself? And what are the benefits to doing that? So those are the topics that we have coming up. Again, HR Lunch Bunch, first Wednesday of every month, 12 noon. I'm Deborah Jeffries with HR Answers. Thanks for being part of this one. We'll close out the formal recording, but we can hang out and chat a little bit longer for those that would like to. Thanks so much, everybody. Appreciate it.